Most of you aren't subscribed. Make sure to subscribe, as it helps out the channel. Without further ado, happy to see that Kelvin is so fired up to fight. Victor raises his arm, casting a black magic spell, Hades' army, cursing and creating some undeads. Annoyed that Victor is capable of dark magic, Kelvin notes how their numbers advantage had immediately been removed, bracing himself as Victor has his undead attack. Quickly scanning them, Kelvin sees that the undead's levels are all rank B and above, stating that it would be best to kill them before they overwhelm his party. Casting several wind slashes, Kelvin is able to clear a wave of undeads, but more undeads simply take the place of the first wave, swarming not only Kelvin, but Gerald and Eiffel as well. Impressed at the persistent waves, Gerald carves a path to Victor, asking that Kelvin assist with any undeads that he may miss. As our duo make their way towards Victor, Victor can't help but compliment their movements and synergy, wondering how Kelvin is so young but has so much battle experience. Ignoring Victor's praises, Kelvin demands that Victor bring out his next trick, catching Victor's attention, as Victor confirms that Kelvin is enjoying facing off against his techniques. Matching Kelvin's energy, Victor slams the ground, creating a smokescreen. With Gerald and Kelvin now on high alert, they both track Victor's presence, with Gerald suddenly forced to block one of Victor's strikes, noting how Victor is moving strangely, as he's moving in and out of the ground. Knowing this, Kelvin is able to dodge Victor's sudden attacks, but Victor changes strategies, encasing his palms with dark magic, blasting and knocking Gerald away. Seeing this, Kelvin notes how Gerald's armor is good against physical attacks, but weak to magic attacks, making Gerald a bad matchup for Victor at close range. Before Kelvin can draw Victor away from Gerald, Kelvin is barely able to dodge one of Victor's attacks, having used the smoke to hide the fact that Victor had extended his arm to sneak up on Kelvin. As Kelvin jumps back from Victor's arm, he realizes that he had fallen for Victor's trap, unintentionally moving closer to Victor to be devoured. Immediately calling for Clotho to stick onto and bind Victor, Kelvin reveals that he had intentionally hidden Clotho just for a sneak attack of his own, immediately casting a binding spell, right as Victor breaks free from Clotho's grips. Happy to see Victor is binded, Kelvin and Gerald both spot Victor beginning to break free from the binding spell, both making preparations to strike Victor down. As Kelvin enchants Gerald's sword, Gerald charges towards the stationary Victor, but Victor smirks, as he has extended his arm once again through the smoke, ready to strike Kelvin down from behind. Having read Victor's intentions, Kelvin calls for Eiffel to reveal herself, throwing Victor off, as Eiffel has an invisibility spell that even he couldn't detect. As Eiffel charges up a fire arrow, she releases it in Victor's direction, forcing him to retract his extended arm, just to block the arrow from striking him down. With Victor distracted, Gerald had made his way into the striking zone, easily cleaving off one of Victor's arms, only to immediately retreat back to Kelvin's position. Impressed that Kelvin and his party had been able to do so much damage to him, Victor admits that he had underestimated them, but Victor immediately begins casting a dark magic spell, encasing himself with a dark cloud. Knowing that Victor is attempting to regenerate and power up, Kelvin orders to attack Victor, prompting Kelvin to lead with an earth spell, only to have Eiffel shoot a fire arrow at Victor's shadowy form. Next, Gerald slashes the air, creating a projectile that lands cleanly on Victor, but it's too late as Victor has officially powered up. With Victor immediately dashing towards them, Kelvin orders Gerald to focus on defense, intercepting and halting Victor's advances. With his new powered-up body, Victor easily knocks Gerald aside, but Eiffel provides backup, firing projectiles and working together with Gerald to distract Victor long enough for Kelvin to get into position. From above, Kelvin casts a flame spell, drawing Victor's attention, allowing Clotho to move in close enough, unleashing a barrage of failed blacksmithing weapons that Kelvin had created and stored in Clotho. Next up, Kelvin, Eiffel and Clotho all simultaneously blast Victor with their most powerful spell, but instead of dodging, Victor mysteriously tanks the blast. As the cave begins to crumble due to their battle, a huge rock falls from the ceiling, heading towards the demon girl's positioning. Seeing this, Kelvin is unable to react to save her, but is surprised when Victor himself protects the demon girl. As the smoke clears, Kelvin and his party spots Victor bleeding out on the floor, admitting defeat. As final words, Kelvin states that he knows Victor had never planned to eat the demon girl, asking why Victor lied to him. Victor reveals that he needed Kelvin to fight him seriously, and that Victor is in fact the assigned caretaker of the demon girl, given the role by the previous Demon King himself. Flashing back 700 years ago, we see Victor training the demon girl, teaching her how to infuse her strikes with her magic. It's revealed that the demon girl's name is Sarah, but Sarah wonders why she is forbidden from leaving her home, as she's jealous her father, Gustav the Demon King, always gets to explore the world. Hearing this, Victor thinks about how Gustav had intentionally hidden Sarah's existence, fearing his enemies would use her against him. Sadly, due to Gustav's protectiveness of Sarah, Sarah had no friends, as she was never allowed to leave or interact with anyone outside her home. Eventually, the heroes finally made it to Gustav's home. The Demon King had prioritized the safety of his daughter, assigning Victor to protect her forever, but just in case Gustav had sealed away Sarah's demon powers as a way to conceal her connection with the Demon King himself. Having been hiding and protecting Sarah all this time in this cave, Victor had hoped the heroes of the world would die off and never be resurrected, but sadly his wish never came true. With his last breath, Victor asks that Kelvin accept Sarah as one of his summons, catching Kelvin off guard as Victor had figured out his party members are actually his summons. As Victor passes away, Kelvin makes his way over to Sarah, breaking her seal, and accepting her into his party. As Kelvin and his gang make it out of the cave, Kelvin is able to make up an excuse regarding Sarah's existence, even concealing her demon horn and wings with an item Victor had left behind to help conceal Sarah's true identity. As the gang recoup on a mountain, Kelvin checks the stats of Gerald, impressed that Gerald has evolved into an abyssal knight, an S-rank creature. Turning to Sarah, Kelvin asks if she has calmed down and accepted her situation, which Sarah says she's still trying to take everything in, but first they all return to town. Since Sarah has never been outside, Sarah is immediately overjoyed to see human culture, running and checking out the stores in town. Asking that Ephil and Gerald watch over Sarah for a bit, Kelvin heads to the guild to sort out and explain to the guild how he was able to defeat the demon in the cave. After chatting with the guild, Kelvin had officially been promoted to rank A and was able to hide Sarah's existence, but was pissed to hear that the guild had intended to capture and use the demon for future experimentations. Returning to his inn, Kelvin is surprised to see everyone there, all ready to celebrate Kelvin's promotion to rank A. As everyone parties hard, they all eventually knock out, but Kelvin in the middle of the night wakes up, wondering where Sarah must have gone. Outside, Sarah sits alone, staring at the move, reminiscing about her time with Victor and how he had promised to show her the outside world. Since Victor is no longer with her, Sarah promises to explore the world, asking for Victor to watch over her as she lives her new life. As Sarah returns back to the inn, Kelvin is seen overhearing Sarah's ideals, promising to give Sarah the life that Victor and her father wanted for her. Thanks for watching. Subscribe, like and comment.